أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Today we are going to start with verse number 122 of Surah Al-Anaam, that is the cattle, which is the 6th surah of the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا كَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِلْكَافِرِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. That is, can the one who was dead, meaning not physically but spiritually dead, dead of soul, can the one who was dead, whom we brought to life and made for him a glorious light, which is the Quran, which guides him on how to move around among people, be like the one wallowing in darkness, not able to come out of it? This is how we create an attraction for the unbelievers in their deeds. So here the term dead has been used as a metaphor for disbelief, and life has been used as a metaphor. Whom we brought back to life means spiritual awakening. Sometimes people say, I have seen light. That means they have become spiritually aware of what is the truth. And kufr and ignorance are like the death of the soul, and spiritual awakening is the life for that soul. And made for him a glorious light, which is the Quran, and through the Quran, which guides him how to move around among people. And some people have given the example of Hazrat Hamza, who was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and also of Umar Farooq, how they were against Islam in the beginning, especially Hazrat Umar, and how he accepted Islam and became a staunch follower. So some commentators think that this is referring to these two people. So can the one who is now alive, has come back to life, be like the one wallowing in darkness, not able to come out of it? This is how we create an attraction for the unbelievers in their deeds. Now this sentence or sentence with a similar meaning is used very often in the Quran, in which it is said, we make the unbelievers feel some kind of an attraction for their wrong deeds. So then this question arises, if God is making them attracted to these wrong deeds, then what is their fault? The reasoning is that they are given a certain amount of time and they have been sent messages. Throughout history, prophets have come and tried to bring people to the right path. But some people would cross the limit that was given to them, cross over the respite or the time limit that was given to them, and therefore after their respite was over, after the time limit was over, then God would put a seal on their hearts and their souls when they would not be able to see the truth. And such people, they themselves did not believe, but they also tried very hard to keep people away from the prophets. If you remember reading about Hazrat Shoaib alayhi salam, how they used to sit on the way, on the road that was leading to his house, because they knew that people would be going to see him. And there they would try to poison their minds about the Prophet and his teachings. And also this metaphor of darkness into light, we find this metaphor repeated over and over in the Quran, where it says that the prophets or the messengers bring people out of the darkness into the light. And one example that I have here is of Surah Al-Baqarah 257. So the source of all religious guidance and the light comes from the Quran. In the Quran itself, it has been called a nur or a light, a glorious light. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا فِي كُلِّ قَرْيَةٍ أَكَابِرَ مُجْرِمِيهَا لِيَمْكُرُوا فِيهَا وَمَا يَمْكُرُونَ إِلَّا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And this is how in every habitation the criminal leaders have been placed by us to practice deception. The same thought is continuing in this verse number 123, that the criminal leaders, that is those who do not believe and they are trying to keep people away from the prophets and the message, they have been placed by us to practice deception. They deceive no one but themselves. So why are the leaders specially mentioned? Because almost everywhere that the prophets were sent, the leaders of that nation they started feeling insecure. That if people start believing in this prophet, then he will become the leader and our leadership will be compromised. Similar was the case with with the Pharaoh, that he said, I am God. All the power that he had, the wealth that he had, the military might that he had was not enough for him. He also wanted to have all the spiritual powers from the people that he governed. So that is why he called himself God. And this has been the case with many kings in the past, that they would call themselves God, so that no one could question whatever they were doing. So here it is said that the criminal leaders have been placed by us to practice deception. These are those leaders whose respite or their time limit has been crossed over, and now they are entrenched in this thought. And they deceive no one but themselves, but they do not understand. This is again a style of the Quran, that whoever is doing something wrong, the Quran says, if somebody is deceiving somebody, on the face of it, you feel that some human being is being deceived. But the Quran says, no, they're not deceiving this person, they're deceiving themselves. Why? Because the harm of that action will rebound, and they will be the ones to suffer. The ultimate result of one's actions will only affect oneself in this world as well as in the hereafter. وَإِذَا جَاءَتُمْ آيَةٌ قَالُوا لَن نُؤْمِنَ حَتَّى نُؤْتَىٰ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ رُسُلُ اللَّهِ اللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ حَيْثُ يَجْعَلُ رِسَالَاتَهُ سَيُصِيبُ الَّذِينَ أَجْرَمُوا صَغَارٌ عِندَ اللَّهِ وَعَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا كَانُوا يَمْكُرُونَ. Whenever a sign, that is an ayah comes to them, they say, we will never believe in it until we are given the like of that given to the messengers of God. So what does this mean? Here the word ayah or ayat means a miracle. Ayat covers a lot of things, and one of those things means a miracle. So since some of the unbelievers were richer, they were the leaders, they were more influential, and they were older in age than the Prophet ﷺ. Some of them might have also been able to read and write, which the Prophet was not trained to do. So they refused to accept his prophethood because they thought they had a better claim to it. So these people said, we are more capable of accepting prophethood or taking up this post. So unless some sign is sent to us, some miracles or book or something is sent to us from God, we will not believe in this faith. And then God answers this objection by saying, God knows best where to place his prophethood. Soon the criminals will experience shame and severe punishment from God because of their deceptions. So prophethood is something for which no one can pray. No one can say, please God, make me a prophet. Prophethood is something which is preordained, and no one can demand it or expect it or pray for it to be made a prophet. And also here the word criminal is used again. Ajramu, that is the mujrim. Criminals and sinner are used as synonyms in the Quran, because anyone who's breaking the law of God is a sinner as well as a criminal. So soon they will experience shame and severe punishment from God because of their deceptions. So the punishment will be humiliation, and it will be also in this world as well as the hereafter. And this will be the opposite of worldly honor that they had claimed to have. They said, we are more honorable, but then they are going to be, because of this honor which in fact God had given them, and they said, we are more honorable than this prophet, so they will be, all that honor will be taken away from them. We have the examples of Abdullah bin Ubay, who was the leader of the hypocrites in Medina. We have the example of Abu Lahab, who was an uncle of the Prophet, and he became an enemy. And in the end, when he died, his body was just rotting, lying there, and even his sons did not want to bury him. So all the pride that he had, the vanity, the claim to honor, that was all lost. So real honor, simply belongs to God, and also to people whom God might decide to share with. Now they also asked for a sign or a miracle, also a sign of prophethood of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's prophethood. They said, how do we know that he is a prophet? If he had come with an angel, then we would have believed this. Or if he had shown us a written book like Hazrat Musa brought, like Moses was given the commandments engraved on stone tablets. So Prophet Muhammad just received the revelation on his heart and mind, and he had no tangible, no solid thing to show to people. So they said if there had been a written book with him or an angel as a proof, then we would have believed him. But the argument is that if an angel had come with him, firstly, an angel in his original form has an appearance that a human being would not be able to tolerate. And even though we think of angels as looking very innocent, they are innocent in the sense that they do not commit any sin or crime, but not to look at. And also, then if he had come in the form of a man, of a human being, just like Angel Gabriel, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam used to come in the form of a man. And he came several times in the Prophet's gatherings, and he taught the people a lot of things, especially about the prayers, the salat. So, and people kept thinking that he's a man from somewhere. They didn't know that he's an angel. So if he had come in the form of a man, they would have said, how do we know this is an angel? He looks like a man. So this was a big dilemma. And they wanted a sign to be given to them. That means they wanted the miracle for themselves or the prophethood. Then there was a person called Walid bin Mughira who had a lot of wealth and a lot of children, which were also a source of strength. And there were others as well. And these are the people who kept demanding all these things, miracles. Similar was the case with the Bani Israelis when we read about them. After they had left Egypt and they were asked to go and fight back for their land. In fact, it was kind of a jihad to fight for their land. And they asked their prophet, who was supposed to be Samuel alayhi salam, that appoint for us a leader to lead us in the war. And when the leader was appointed, they were not happy with him because he was a farmer. He was a small-time farmer. And again they thought, that it should be somebody who was rich and mighty. فَمَنْ يُرِدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ وَمَنْ يُرِدْ أَنْ يُضِلَّهُ يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ كَذَلِكَ يَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. For the one whom God intends to guide, He expands the breast for Islam. For the one whom God intends to leave misguided, He constricts the breast to the point of suffocation, as if climbing towards the skies. This is how God leaves in impurity those who do not believe. Now, what is the meaning of expanding the breast? Shara sadr. An yahdiyahu yashra sadrahu, to expand the breast. We find this in many places in the Quran. For example, the prayer that I recite at the beginning of this program, that is Hazrat Musa alayhi salam's prayer, Rabbish rahli sadri wa yassir li amri. So the first thing, when God appointed him a prophet, he was a bit nervous because he had never thought of it, like this. This is by the way, from Surah Al-Taha, verse number 25. The number of the surah is 20. Rabbish rahli sadri means, oh my Lord, expand my breast for me. So we have to find out the meaning of expanding one's breast. It's not just the physical breast, but it's the heart, and also of course the mind works along with the heart. Heart again, not the physical heart that the doctors examine, but the heart which is the seat of belief, of disbelief, of inner thoughts, of intention, of sentiments. So when the breast is expanded, it means it's a metaphor for the soul becoming more receptive, sort of get more space in the breast or the soul to become more receptive to the truth. There is a hadith in this connection which says about expansion of the breast, Shara Sadr, a light that God, glory be to Him, casts into the heart of the believer so that it is expanded and made spacious for him. And this person also keeps turning towards the eternal abode. That means then the one whose heart has been expanded, for him this world becomes unimportant and he starts thinking about the hereafter. So he keeps turning towards the eternal abode and turns away from the abode of delusion. This world has been called the abode of delusion, and prepares for death before it comes. Now, normally we don't like to talk about death. Why? Because for us, for every individual, one's death is the end of everything for that person. So we don't want to think about it. But from the spiritual or the religious point of view, we have been asked to keep reminding ourselves about our death. We have been told if you pass by a graveyard, just stop and think about it. That before the day of judgment, this is your eternal abode. This is where you will be buried. Or this is the place of temporary keeping, it has been called. So when one thinks of death, not in a morbid way, but as an eventuality, as something that has to happen, then one starts thinking about one's deeds and one's belief in this world. And that is what is going to make us more successful in the hereafter. In Surah number 94, that is Surah Al-Inshirah, the Prophet is being addressed by God and he's Alam nashrah laka sadraka, have we not expanded your breast for you? When the Prophet was a bit depressed, he received this revelation. Have we not expanded your breast for you? Because this is one of the greatest blessings that anyone can receive. And so on it goes. كَذَلِكَ يَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. This is how God leaves in impurity those who do not believe. That means for those people who do not believe and who do not want to believe, and I'll keep seeing this again and again, those who cross their limit, the time limit that was given to them to come to belief, God will leave them in their impurity and will not worry about them at all. وَهَذَا صِرَاطُ رَبِّكَ مُسْتَقِيمًا قَدْ فَصَّلْنَا الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. This is the path of your Lord, the right path. This is how we expound the revelations for the nation that takes heed. Fassalna again is to repeat again and again in different ways. And also to go into the details. So God goes into details about everything and in various ways over and over again in the Quran so that people might understand. لَهُمْ دَارُ السَّلَامِ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَهُوَ وَلِيُّهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. For them is the abode of peace with their Lord. He is their friend because of their good deeds. Darus Salam means the abode of peace. So those people, the last verse and the last part of that last sentence was, we expound the revelations for the nation that takes heed. So the nation or the people who are taking heed are the people who are listening to their prophet. And of course, through the prophet, they are listening to God and they're trying to do their best of all the deeds that they're supposed to do. So what is there for them? What is in store for them? Darus Salam. That is the abode of peace. And we know that the ones who go to heaven, they will not have any kinds of worries, no diseases, no problems, no jealousies, nothing. It will be just, a peaceful place, thoroughly and absolutely peaceful. Abode of peace has been called the Garden of Eden. And it is that state of spiritual peace which some souls may enter before death. Because every soul will not be able to reach that station. But some souls who try hard enough, who believe thoroughly, believe completely, and also practice as much as possible, for them will be spiritual peace and they will be welcomed by God Himself to heaven. I think I'd like to read this out because this is one of my favorite verses in the Quran. This is Surah Al-Fajr. Surah Al-Fajr is the 89th Surah of the Quran, translated as the daybreak. And here it is said that the successful will be told, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainna, irja'i ila rabbiki radiyatam mardiya, fadkhuli fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati. So they will be told, O blissful soul. Blissful soul means the soul which is totally and completely peaceful. It has no problems, no qualms about what it didn't do. And the soul which has accepted everything that God sent. So, O blissful soul, return to your Lord such that you are pleased with Him and He with you. So it is important that you become pleased with God, and when you are pleased with God and your deeds become more and more perfect or close to perfect, then what will happen? He will be pleased with you. It is said about him that Irja ila Rabbiki radiyatam mardiya. Return to your Lord such that you are pleased with Him and He with you. Fadkhuli fi ibadi. Enter with my devotees. Wadkhuli jannati. Enter my paradise. So, what could be more beautiful and desired than the fact that God Himself will welcome some people to paradise? So this is actually the highest stage of the soul, which is achieved through constant training, abstinence, prayer, zikr, remembrance. And one who gives up the base, the lower pleasures of the world, follows all the prescribed rules of behavior as well as worship, and excels by offering voluntary devotions. Like, of course, it's necessary to do the obligatory worship, devotions and duties. But one who wants to excel, move forward, then he offers voluntary devotions. Nafli, ibadat. Learned word for it is supererogatory. So offering voluntary devotions, vigils, that means night vigil, staying up at night, like praying tahajjud and other things, sacrifices, and then reaches the stage when no pain or hurt seems to matter. So when person is still progressing is in a lower stage, then if somebody hurts us, then we react at once. If somebody uses a bad word for us, we automatically repeat that word for him. But when the soul is so blissful and tranquil and has progressed to such a high level, then none of these things will hurt him. And the only goal in sight is to obey God and to love Him and to be loved by Him. The experience of love will engulf every other experience. This piece of good news will be given at the time of the person's death, as well as when the dead are raised on the day of judgment. And there are, in the Quran itself, 3 stages of the development of the soul have been mentioned. Maybe if we have some time one day, we can discuss them. So these souls will be deserving of the Darus Salam, the abode of peace, and with their Lord, and He is the word in Arabic is waliyum, He is their wali. Wali can be translated as a friend or a protecting friend or a protector and so on. وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا يَا مَعْشَرَ الْجِنِّ قَدِ اسْتَكْثَرْتُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ وَقَالَ أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا قَالَ النَّارُ مَثْوَاكُمْ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ Inna Rabbaka Hakimun Alim. The day He will gather them all together, He will say, O group of jinns, you misguided humans a great deal. Their friends from among the humans will say, O our Lord, we exploited each other and we have reached the respite, that is the time limit, you ordained for us. He will say, fire is your abode where you will live forever, except for the one whom God wishes to pardon. Indeed, your Lord is the wise, the ever-knowing. First of all, we must make it clear that the jinns are a parallel creation to human beings. Parallel in the sense that they have also been given a choice, just like human beings, and they will be judged on the day of judgment. No other creatures have been given a choice, and no other creatures will be judged. They are not accountable, they will not be held accountable, and neither will they go to heaven. So the superior position of the human beings and the jinn is because they have been given a choice, and they become superior by making the right choice and progressing in it. So here it is said that, they will be told on the day He will gather them together, is the day of judgment, that the group of jinns, you misguided humans a great deal. We know that the jinn, this is said in the Quran, Shaitan was a jinn. Even though we find the first mention of Shaitan in the Quran comes when he refuses to do sajda, to prostrate to Adam, and when all the angels were asked to prostrate. But the main thing is that the reason why he was there with the angels was because he had done so much worship He had so much knowledge and he worshipped God so incessantly that he was placed with the angels. But there was one thing over which he had not controlled himself, and that was his pride, a vanity, and that became the cause for his downfall. So their friends from among the humans will say, "O our Lord, we exploited each other and we have reached the respite you ordained for us." So we exploited each other was because the jinns used to whisper, or the shayateen. Of course, I will also like to tell you that the jinns can also be good or bad. They can follow any religion that is there in the world, just like the human beings. But they have this additional ability to appear and disappear as they please, or to take on any form. They can take the form of any creature, or they can possess a creature. And because of this, some people started thinking that the jinns were a superior creation. But there is one thing here to be noted, that the jinns do not have any prophets of their own. They follow the human prophets. They might say, "I'm a follower of Hazrat Musa," even today, and he was there at the time of Prophet Musa, and he's still alive today, because they also have a very long life, much longer than the human beings. They are sort of saying, we exploited each other, we made use of each other, and then we have reached our time limit, which is the end of this life, or the day of judgment, or the time limit for those particular individuals. So here they will be told, "Fire is your abode where you will live forever, except for the one whom God wishes to pardon." Now this "except" is for the one whom God wishes to pardon has been explained in different ways by different commentators. For example, Hazrat Ibn Abbas says that "except for the one whom God wishes to pardon" applies only to the believers, because God will not pardon the non-believers. But there are some commentators who say that this could be anybody. It could be a believer, or it could be a non-believer. And since we know, and then it says, "Your Lord is the wise, the ever-knowing," since He knows everything, since He knows all the details, and He has the wisdom to make decisions, wise decisions, therefore we don't know. He might even pardon some of the non-believers. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. This is how we turn transgressors against each other, because of the deeds that they do. So sometimes people who have transgressed, who have crossed the limits given to them by God, then they are made to confront each other. And according to Allama Qurtubi, the cruel will be made to rule over the transgressors, who will destroy them. Sometimes, you have in history, you find that there are very cruel rulers who do all kind of cruel things to their followers or to their nation. So this is a kind of a punishment in the world. Also, there is a general belief that if the people have not cultivated themselves in the right manner, then God will force a cruel ruler over them. So this could also be the meaning. Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-insi, alam ya'atikum rusulun minkum yaqussuna alaykum ayati وَيُنْزِرُونَكُمْ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا. You group of jinns and humans, did there not come to you messengers from among yourselves, who used to recite to you our revelations and used to warn you about the meeting of this day? So, from among yourselves means that the messengers came from the same nation, just as Prophet Muhammad came from the people of Arabia, from Makkah. So also every prophet was appointed from his own nation, and this was done because the wisdom behind this was that people will not have any excuse to say, "He's a foreigner, he's used to this kind of weather and we are not used to this kind of weather, so we can't follow him, we can't imitate him, or we don't understand his language, or he has different habits," or whatever. People could have found all kinds of excuses. So the prophets always, the messengers always came from among the nation to which they were sent, who used to recite to you our revelations and used to warn you about the meeting of this day. So God, it is said, would never destroy a people before sending a warning through His messengers, making people aware of their wrong beliefs and deeds. and the destructive end. The warning was also for the destructive end that they could meet. قالوا شهدنا على أنفسنا وغرتهم الحياة الدنيا وشهدوا على أنفسهم أنهم كانوا كافرين. They will say, we testify against ourselves, so they don't need any other witnesses. They are testifying against themselves. They were deceived by the life of this world and will testify against themselves that they were unbelievers. Since there will be no way of making excuses, because everything, our whole record will be there in black and white, the whole record of our lifetime. So no one will be able to deny anything. ذَلِكَ أَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ رَبُّكَ مُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى بِظُلْمٍ وَأَهْلُهَا غَافِلُونَ. This is because your Lord does not destroy habitations unjustly when the people are unaware. So, as we said earlier, God first gives a warning, not just one warning, but different warnings in different ways. And then, when the time is over, then those habitations are destroyed. Because unjustly means that God does not do anything which is wrong or which is not just. وَلِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ أَمَّا يَعْمَلُونَ. Everyone has a spiritual station according to deeds committed. Your Lord is not unaware of what they do. So people are assigned spiritual positions and ranks according to their deeds as well as beliefs. Now, some people, like there was a companion of the Prophet who became very ill. And when he finally came to visit the Prophet, he didn't come for many days, and then he came. The Prophet said, what happened? And he said, here, whenever I wish to, I can come and see you. Of course, he loved the Prophet a great deal. And I just thought about, the afterlife, and I know that you will be in a very high position. Your rank will be so high that I will not be able to reach you. And just that thought made me ill. And then, as I think we had discussed earlier, then the verses of Surah Al-Nisa, I think verse 69 were revealed, in which it is said, أَنَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ حَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. That means, I've left out the first part of this verse. Those who believe and do good deeds, they will be placed, with the prophets and the saints and the shuhada, the martyrs, and the pious people. And hasuna ulaika rafiqa, that means what good companions to have. That means these people who have done nothing wrong, they have also done good things. Maybe they are not of such a high station, but they will be able to meet and see these people who are on a higher station. Now, what is important here is, everywhere in the Quran we come across people who believe, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, but you will find that it is always accompanied by Ya ayyuhallazina amanu wa amilus salihat. That means believe, those who believe and also commit good deeds. So only they will have these ranks and these privileges. That means sometimes people think, okay, we have been born in a Muslim house and they have to write a form. What is your religion? They fill the form and say, we are Muslim. But in their hearts and in their practices, in their deeds, they are not really adhering to the religion. But in order to be able to acquire a good position, maybe that will save them from the fire of hell. But in order to acquire a high position, one will have to be a believer as well as a person who commits good deeds. Sometimes people in this world are raised above others just as a trial, like a cruel king. That might be a trial for that king himself, and it also might be a trial for the followers, for the nation. So everyone has a spiritual station, it has a rank, and that rank has to be earned. One has to work for it. Because here also it is saying, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ أَمَّا يَعْمَلُونَ. Your Lord is not unaware of what they commit, what they do. That means He is going to judge by the deeds, especially when it comes to a matter of stations and rank. وَرَبُّكَ الْغَنِيُّ ذُو رَحْمَةٍ إِنْ يَشَاءْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَسْتَخْلِفْ مِنْ بَعْدِكُمْ مَا يَشَاءُ كَمَا أَنْشَأَكُمْ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّةِ قَوْمٍ آخَرِينَ. Your Lord is the generous, the one with mercy. If He please, He can take you away and bring in your place whomever He please, the way He created you from the children of another nation. So, the divine name used here for the Lord, for God, is Ghani. And Ghani has most often been translated as being rich. But I see it as being rich and generous, because if you are rich and you're not sharing your wealth with anybody, then you are not Ghani. So Ghani, who has a boundless wealth and is also very generous, like Usman Ghani, can also mean self-sufficient. He does not need anybody's help. He is independent. While his creatures, on the other hand, are, in comparison to God, they are poor and they are dependent. All they have is what God has given them, and they don't know when it might be taken away from them. So He is the generous, the one with mercy, Zu Rahmati. If He please, He can take you away and bring in your place whomever He please. This also has been repeated many times in the Quran, that when a nation is made the leader of other nations and they start committing transgressions, then God says that I will take the leadership away from you and bring another nation in your place as the leaders. إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَآتٍ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُعْجِزِينَ. That which has been promised to you is sure to happen. You cannot tire out God. So whatever promises God is making, one should not think of them as mere stories, but these are things which will actually happen. So, Ma antum bimujizin, that means whatever God has promised or stated, that cannot be thwarted. Even the warnings that human beings are being given through the prophets and through the books, they are also a kind of mercy. Because who will benefit from these warnings? If one obeys, one follows these warnings, takes heed from those warnings, then the person who takes heed will be the one who will benefit. So this is also a kind of form of mercy expressed by God. And also, God has endless or perfect mercy because He endows all creatures with existence without really needing them. God does not need the creatures, but He created them and gave them an opportunity to earn wonderful, beautiful abode in the hereafter. قُلْ يَا قَوْمِ اعْمَلُوا عَلَى مَكَانَتِكُمْ إِنِّي عَامِلٌ فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ مَنْ تَكُونُ لَهُ عَاقِبَةُ الدَّارِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Say, O my people, do whatever you want, I will do what I want. You will soon come to know as to who has a better place in the end. The unjust are never successful. Here we read the word in Arabic, Qul, which means that the Prophet ﷺ is being asked to say this to those people who are arguing with him. O my people, see how much love and with how much gentleness he's being asked to say something which is really an argument, and they are the people who are quarreling with him in argument. O my people, do whatever you want. I will do what I want. You will soon come to know as to who has a better place in the end. And the unjust are never successful, mainly in the hereafter, but sometimes also in this world people are caught for their wrong deeds. Whatever you want to do is not like a permission. They are not being given a permission to do whatever they want to do. This is like, sometimes a mother gets very exasperated by what her children are insisting on doing, and she's telling them not to do it. And in the end, she might say, okay, do whatever you want to do. But that is not a permission. That is saying like, don't come to me after that, or I'm angry with you, She's displaying her or expressing her displeasure. So in the same way, do whatever you want. I will do whatever I want. So this is in a similar manner. But a good child and an intelligent child will understand that his or her mother is not really happy with what that child is trying to do. وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ مِمَّا زَرَعَ مِنَ الْخَرْصِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ نَصِيبًا وَقَالُوا هَذَا لِلَّهِ بِزَعْمِهِمْ وَهَذَا لِشُرَكَائِنَا وَمَا كَانَ لِشُرَكَائِهِمْ فَلَا يَصِلُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَمَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ فَهُوَ يَصِلُ إِلَى شُرَكَائِهِمْ. sa'a ma yahkumun. They have appointed shares for God from what is grown of harvest and from cattle. They say this is for God according to their thinking, and this is for their idols. The share of their idols does not reach God, but the share of God reaches their idols. What a bad judgment to make. So when these people, the idol worshippers, would collect their harvest, they would give in charity in God's name as well as in the name of their idols, who they thought their idols had a priority in this matter. And according to some commentators, from the share of God they gave to the poor and also to the guests. But for the share of the idols, from the share of the idols they gave to the priests. That means they thought that was something higher. And if the share of God turned out to be better or more, for example, if they had said, from this orchard I will give for God and from this orchard I will give for my idols. So if the harvest turned out to be the one which was meant for God, if it turned out to be better, then they would transfer it to the idols, give it in the name of the idols, but they wouldn't do it the other way around. So of course they had all this kind of warped thinking. So this was of course a bad judgment to make. And this also shows that they were more loyal to their idols and they thought they were more important. And of course it also, here God says what a bad judgment to make, because God is self-sufficient. He does not need their offerings. He does not need their charity. So just as the evil deeds will rebound on the person who has committed it, so also the good deeds will benefit the person who has committed it. وَكَذَلِكَ زَيَّنَ لِكَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ قَتْلَ أَوْلَادِهِمْ شُرَكَاؤُهُمْ لِيُرْدُوهُمْ وَلِيَلْبِسُوا عَلَيْهِمْ دِينَهُمْ وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا فَعَلُوهُ فَذَرْهُمْ وَمَا يَفْتَرُونَ. And this is how those they appoint as partners of God have made it seem attractive to them to kill their children, in order to destroy them and confuse them in the matter of their faith. If God had so willed, they would not have done so, so leave them alone with their slandering. The slandering was that whatever they did, whatever rituals they had, or beliefs that they had concocted, they would say that this is from God. So this is why it's called yaftarun, that is slandering. Now here this thing about killing their children was that a few tribes of Arabia used to kill their children due to poverty. All the people of Arabia couldn't possibly have done this. Especially, they used to kill the female child. And they say that when she was about 4 or 5 years old, they would ask the mother to dress her up nicely and, take her, that I'm taking her somewhere to a nice place. And then he had already dug a grave for her. And he would go and push her into that grave and cover up with the dirt. And somehow they thought, they were doing a very good thing. Because firstly, all the value system had become distorted. Besides, some considered female children to be a burden because they would be of no help in their tribal wars. They were always fighting tribal wars. And then the tribes, if they grew up and they married, if they married them into another tribe, then those tribes would expect some concessions from them and so on, So as a result of the shayateen or the devils that they were following, they were sort of whispering to them about these evil deeds and they were following them. I don't believe that all the tribes in Arabia did this, because if they had done that, then the whole of their, nation would have been destroyed. Because how can you carry on without females? I have read that there were about 3 tribes. I can't recall their names. Maybe when I find them again, I'll let you know, that these tribes used to practice female infanticide. وَقَالُوا هَذِهِ أَنْعَامٌ وَحَرْثٌ حِجْرٌ لَا يَطْعَمُهَا إِلَّا مَن نَّشَاءُ بِزَعْمِهِمْ وَأَنْعَامٌ حُرِّمَتْ ظُهُورُهَا وَأَنْعَامٌ لَا يَذْكُرُونَ اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا افْتِرَاءً عَلَيْهِ سَيَجْزِيهِمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. They say the cattle and harvest has been stayed. No one can eat of it except the one we allow. This is their claim. And also they say some of the cattle is forbidden for riding, and some cattle on which the name of God is not pronounced. All this is a fabrication on him. Soon he will requite them for their fabrication. So these were arbitrary practices which they considered obligatory. They made them up themselves, their whimsical thinking, and they said this is obligatory from God. Example regarding certain cattle or livestock to be sacrosanct, too holy to be touched or made use of. For example, I think we have gone through this before once. The Meccans dedicated them to idols or to God and prohibited them for slaughter. In some cases, they said such and such cattle will be prohibited for women, and some cattle will be prohibited for riding and bearing weight and burdens. And they connected with the rituals of, we have read about how they would call certain cattle Bahira or Saiba or Wasila or Ham. And this is mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is the 5th surah, and verse number 103. For example, I'll just give one example. Wasila is the name of the camel, the she-camel, which produced 2 females at first and second successive deliveries. So she became sacrosanct, too sacred to be touched. Such cattle were left to roam free in the name of their idols and were not put to any use at all, attributing these rules to God. So they were saying that this is what God has asked us to do, because they were believing, they were taking the name of God at the same time as they were taking the name of their idols. وَقَالُوا مَا فِي بُطُونِ هَذِهِ الْأَنْعَامِ خَالِصَةٌ لِذُكُورِنَا وَمُحَرَّمٌ عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَإِنْ يَكُنْ مَيْتَةً فَهُمْ فِيهِ شُرَكَاءُ سَيَجْزِيهِمْ وَصْفَهُمْ إِنَّهُ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. They say whatever is in the wombs of these cattle is purely for our males and is forbidden to our wives. So they would reserve, and say that whatever is in the womb of this particular animal, this cattle, no female can have it. Only the males are allowed to have it. And in case it is stillborn, then they are all partners in it. And if that child is still born dead, then they can all have it. Now these things don't make any sense. He will soon require them for what they say, for he is the wise, the all-knowing. Here I left out one little thing on which the name of God is not pronounced. Some of the cattle, this is verse 138, some of the cattle is forbidden for riding, and some cattle on which the name of God is not to be pronounced. So they would say that on these cattle you cannot take the name of God at all, because the name of the idols had already been taken. So all this was just foolish thinking. قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ قَتَلُوا أَوْلَادَهُمْ سَفَهًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَحَرَّمُوا مَا رَزَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ افْتِرَاءً عَلَى اللَّهِ قَدْ ضَلُّوا وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. Indeed, they are the losers, those who kill their children foolishly without knowledge and forbade what provision God had given them by fabricating lies about God. They have lost their way, and they were not of those who would be guided. Some commentators here have brought up the question of abortion, and there are some schools of thought which allow abortion within 4 months of pregnancy in case the life of the mother is in danger. In order to save the life of the mother, they allow that. But otherwise, it is the same as committing a murder. But of course, here mainly it is referring to female infanticide. I've heard that in some countries, in some communities, when a woman is pregnant, nowadays, of course, almost everyone gets an ultrasound done. And from that, they discover whether it's going to be a boy or a girl, the gender of the baby. And in some communities, when they find out that it's going to be a female, they have it aborted. And I have read about certain communities where already they're starting to feel the pinch, because now they don't have enough women in their community, and boys are abducting girls so that they can find a wife, because there's become a scarcity of females in that community. We have finished the second ruku today of Surah Al-Anaam. That is the 6th surah of the Quran. We can carry on from this verse number 141, inshallah, next week. Let us say our little prayer. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. रब्बना आतिना फिद दुनिया हसनतम व फिल आखिरति हसनतम व क़िना अज़ाबन्नार वादखिलना जन्नता मअल अबरार या अज़ीज़ो या गफ़्फ़ार या रब्बिल आलमीन बिरहमतिका या अरहमर राहिमीन आमीन सुम्मा आमीन. Thank you everyone for joining us, and inshallah we'll see you again next week. Allah Hafiz.